Hi, I'm Kimberly Lane.
I'm Sonia Jante.
And I'm Jonathan Ward, and together we're Unlocking Leadership. We're three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. In every episode, we take a question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenge from our three different perspectives. It's a holistic approach to understanding challenges and opportunities. So let's get down to it. Our question today is from Brett in London, Ontario, Canada. Brett says, my HR partner recently shared that what's keeping me from a promotion is my operating as a firefighter versus as a leader. What does that mean? Sonia, what does Brett need to change to get that promotion?
Well, Brett, thank you for the question. And at least you got guidance from your HR partner, so you can have at least something to aim for. So when I hear the term firefighter, I think of the person being constantly in react mode and jumping from crises to crises or things that look like crises. So you don't have a lot of time or posture to be able to do the things that normally leaders do when they are really managing and anticipating what they need to be planning for. So I will break it down into a couple of areas. One is what you need to be doing, and one what you might want to be doing with the team that either you work with right now or that reports directly to you. So the first thing on your side of the equation is you're going to need to be doing some planning and being able to address, the different areas that you're responsible for and identify like where you are now and where you want to be going so that you can at least identify some of the key areas that you want to be looking at. The next thing you want to be looking at is how are you going to establish ways to measure that success or the moving towards that direction so that you can give that information to the people that you're working with. Normally, we use KPIs that are, key ways of being able to identify what are the key indicators for moving in the right direction. As it relates to others, the first thing is if you do have people reporting directly to you, you might want to examine what approach do you take or what understanding do you have with them about the concept of accountability? How are they actually being accountable for what they're delivering or not delivering? Because if you're constantly in a state of crisis, something is breaking down, something is not happening that is expected to be happening in order for it to function. And then when you are able to then have a clear understanding of accountability, then you got to delegate. You can't put the whole thing on your back and try to, manage every single thing. Because if you're not delegating, if you have people that are capable and that you guys have a good understanding of accountability, the question I ask myself is, do you get a lot of rewards for being the firefighter? Is there some part of you that makes you feel like I'm a superhero because I can do this? Because people who are in firefighting mode get that charge, that energy about being able to show up and have like this is what's working or not working, like the plumber that goes and finds that the water's not flowing or the water is flowing too much and fixes it. In that moment, there is that reward of, oh, I'm needed. So there's some self-examination that needs to happen, and then there's some new practices that you need to start embracing. At least that's what I think. What about you guys? What do you guys think?
It's so funny, Sonia, that you brought that up about as a firefighter. I know some firefighters, and it's just their personality. Like they're not there on just the when things are calm or really responsive when things are flowing normal. But when there's a crisis and they need to rescue somebody or get the cat out of the tree or rescue you, they are all over it. Like they love being the hero, he or she, right? So
Mhm.
and I really appreciate you suggesting, and I'm not so sure that this is true, Brett, but there is some self-examination that might be necessary here to really, why is it that you prefer to be the firefighter kind of a thing. I also do think there's part of us from a DNA perspective, some of us are naturally more proactive than others and some of us are more naturally reactive. So there's some tools out there to discover that, and not saying you can't become proactive if you're more reactive, but just there is some awareness there that could be helpful for you. Um, uh, again, firefighter is being reactive, but I also think when we're being reactive, we are giving our power away. And versus what we're trying to help you do as a leader is be very centered in who you are, confident in your strengths and weaknesses, and then empowered in the essence to create change. And part of that, Sonia mentioned, is being able to see around the corner and anticipating what's going to happen in the culture, the environment, your competition, the market, issues you or your team might be having to deal with in the future versus just waiting for something to happen and then reacting to it. So it's really a shift of your entire mindset, as opposed to being sitting there waiting for something to come to you. You actually go out there and try to determine and anticipate what's going to happen and prepare yourself and your team for that. Sonia also mentioned, I think, wonderfully about just how you work with your team and the KPIs. It might be beneficial, if you're not doing this already, is to sit down with your individuals, employees, and ask them, what do they want to accomplish? Where do they want to be at the end of the year, 2 years, 3 years from now? What are your expectations for them and their role? So again, you're being more proactive. You're thinking about, okay, at the end of the year, I don't want to say you didn't do a good job, you didn't finish the project in time, you continually be late. I want to have that as a KPI saying, my expectation is you finish the projects on time, we're never late for the customer, da 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 da. So I think it's just kind of shifting, instead of kind of waiting for life to happen to you or what's going on at work, you're actually shifting and kind of saying, this is what we'd like to see happen to be successful. This is what my team needs to do in order to be successful. And this is how I need to manage them. So Jonathan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was my reaction was interesting when I was thinking about what does it mean to be a leader and who would your people rather follow? If you think about, if you are, if say, for example, you're a soldier or something, would you rather be working for a general who has a big view of the strategic campaign? Where is it that we are moving? What are we trying to do? How are we anticipating what the enemy is going to be doing? What moves might we be happening, as opposed to following somebody who might lead you into an ambush or something like that because he's just reacting to what's right in front of him. And that can have there are, again, pluses and minuses to how you react to different ways, that way, personal preferences. But I also think about what is it that you do to your team if you're in constant reactive mode. And I was thinking back to a person that I used to work for one time who really was not able to think very far out about what she needed. She had us come in, I remember one time on the Father's Day weekend, because she had a report she needed to do and she wasn't sure if she was going to need us or not. So all of us sat in the office for the entire weekend waiting to find out if she wanted to have, and then it turned out she didn't need us after all. She did the report entirely herself. So, going back to what Kimberly was saying about delegating, and Sonia said about delegating too, is that, if you've got people who are waiting for you and you're just reacting to things in the moment, you're likely to wait until it's too late to delegate something, and then somebody has to make it a firefighting response for them to get back to you, and it can be extremely frustrating for your staff. So being a leader means being more proactive and sitting back and taking that bigger picture view and getting to things a little bit earlier before they become a crisis, and that can be a big shift for a lot of people to take.
I really like your example of so who would you really want to follow? And, there's, you might want to take a look at why people are working in your company and in your group, because I find a couple of things that you could do. I find that normally towards the top of that list is people like to solve complex problems, and which allows them to then feel like you're investing in them and they have the opportunity to grow. So that's something that a firefighter can't do. He can't, or she can't invest them in other people and help them grow their career. And in the kind of times that we're living in right now, with just so many things that are uncertain, as a firefighter, you will get burned out. You will get burned out, and there's a strong likelihood that instead of, it's it reminds me of one of those cartoons. The little whatever, the coyote's running, and he's running off of the cliff, and he doesn't even know that he's run up the cliff because he's in that state all the time. And a leader would never have that. That would not happen to him.
Yeah, and I kind of think, and I know though firefighters work as a team, right? And it's a little bit a different scenario in that, you know, they're reacting to a fire. That's their role. That's the career they have chosen, and it's an admirable career. I'm just thinking in a leadership situation, you tend to be when you're having to put out a fire, it's usually one person, and I don't want to say you're necessarily a victim, but you know, so much is out of your control. As Jonathan mentioned, it's kind of at the end of the game, right? Because at the final moment, things are blowing up, right? You don't have enough time, and a lot of people don't really want to work in that crisis mode, right? So you're going to probably be alone in doing that, right? It's really be hard to rally your team to always come in every weekend, every time you've got a project, because they know, you know, here we go again. You know, she didn't plan enough time in advance, so here we got to go come this weekend and sit in the office again. I mean, that's going to get old for people, right? So if you want to have a team that is around you, that embraces you as a leader and feels empowered by you, then that begins with you being more proactive and you know, putting your frame of mind out to be more strategic and almost you're now caring not only for yourself, but you're caring for your team as opposed to just reacting to what's coming out. So
Yeah, I guess one other piece of observation here is how does the organization benefit? If you're constantly putting out fires, the organization's not learning and growing from that. If you're being strategic, you're anticipating where these fires and breakdowns are going to be happening, and you're working to prevent those so that the organization can learn and grow.
yeah, and then also and kind of attaching to that is, as a company, don't you want to be in front of your competition? Don't you want to be leading the market and being innovative, as opposed to just someone else came out with a purple whatever, you're going to come out with a slightly different purple. Why don't you come out with a teal colored one, right? So it changes the whole mindset of the company. The company becomes a leader when you as a leader become a leader too, right?
Yeah, and I just had this insight about potentially why the feedback came back to him from HR, and that is he may be unconsciously creating a risk for the organization because there might have been people from the organization that have gone into HR and complained about the stress that they're experiencing. And in the world that we're living today, where that's a factor that gets into consideration a lot, how much are you impacting people so that they are feeling that they've got, you know, this kind of condition out there that's going to create tremendous stress, and it's a liability. It's a liability. So I encourage you, please be willing to plan and delegate and empower your people.
Yes, empower yourself and empower your people. So great. Thank you, Brett. We appreciate your question today. We hope you, our viewers and listeners, have had a better understanding of how to move from firefighter to leader. To our listeners, if you like the content we shared today, please like this episode and also share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unlocking Leadership -askthecoaches.com. We really look forward to reading your reviews. You can also find Unlocking Leadership Ask the Coaches on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. If you have a leadership question, we'd really love to hear from you. Please reach out to our coaches by emailing us at info@unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. And then, as always, thank you for joining us today. Tune in next time to find the keys to unlocking your best leadership.